Hi everyone, thanks for joining our webinar, Fax Servers in the NHS. I'm Chris Buller, I'm an account manager here at AMS, and I've also got Richard Spinks with me as well, who's our technical manager. Now if you have any questions, you can type these in the box in the webinar panel, and we'll do our best to answer these at the end. Just before we start the webinar, I wanted to do a quick poll, if I may, just to find out what area is most of interest to you when you're looking at a fax solution. So I'm going to launch this now. So if you're able just to click on one of the options, we'll take a quick look at the results just to get a better idea of the sort of things that you're looking at when looking at fax solutions. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for doing that. It appears it's an equal between improved security and compliance and replacement of NHS mail fax services. I suppose this really coincides with what we're talking to the trusts about at the moment. So we find that IG are quite often involved in the projects that we work in, and also this March 15 deadline with the changes in NHS mail is also there's a time frame on that, and it's something we've been approached about a lot at the moment. Okay, well thanks for doing that. So just to take you through the webinar. Sorry, I seem to have a problem with my slide deck here. Okay, so just to take you through what we're hoping to cover in today's webinar. First, we'll introduce ourselves, AMS, and the manufacturer OpenText. We'll then go through a bit about our NHS experience and how we tend to work with the trusts that we're working with. I'll then explain the solutions that we can provide around centralized fax and cloud fax options. We're reasonably short on time, so we'll go on to a demonstration, but just of the RightFax software, which is our most popular solution. We'll then go on to give you a quick example of a business case and return on investment report. We'll then come back and summarise, and there'll be a chance for questions and answers at the end as well. So, AMS and OpenText. Well, we've been around for about 22 years, and really our core business focus, probably 75 to 80% of our business, is centralised or cloud fax solutions. Now, we're in a fortunate position to be a platinum partner for the information exchange group from OpenText. Now, OpenText are a multi-billion-dollar organisation, and they're actually the #1 fax server vendor in the world. And because these solutions traditionally have fit quite well into the NHS with the requirements, between us we have quite a lot of NHS experience. Now, when we're talking to our NHS customers, there's really some key benefits that tend to fit across requirements that we come across. And hopefully you'll agree or disagree with some of these, but feel free to comment at the end. So the first thing is a large number of single-function fax machines. Now, with a centralized or cloud solution, you can consolidate the number of fax machines down dramatically or hopefully eliminate them completely. Security of documents, so fax machines locked in a room or a cabinet, safe haven environments, you can eliminate these. So you can have faxes securely routed via DDI routing to a specific email account, maybe to a network directory, or have a user access them via a desktop or web client. Now, the need to control where the outbound fax goes, so whitelists and blacklists. Many of the customers that have approached us have had concerns around the ICO and fines and so on, but the fax information ended up in the wrong hands. So we can provide you with whitelists and blacklists just to ensure that the fax data leaving the organisation does end up in the right place. Now, many trusts spend a lot of money on 300, 400 MFPs and fax enable these individually, and you don't need to do this. You can fax enable these multifunctional devices centrally through a centralized solution, and there's different methods around this. We have a native connector for most devices, most of the big brands, and we also have a very simple generic SMT connector that can connect to any multifunctional device. Most organisations have a strong drive for cost savings, and we really believe in the right environment that we can put forward a great business case. We haven't really come across an NHS trust so far that the business case doesn't stack up. Now nowadays, information governance are always involved in the projects that we work in because the requirement for audit trail. Now with these solutions, you do get an audit trail on a per fax basis, which is great for compliance. And faxing is always sat on the periphery of a department. It's never really been managed, and this gives a department, whether it's IT, telecoms or estates, the ability to manage faxing as a process. And more of a recent requirement, and we touched on it earlier briefly, is the NHS mail dropping fax and SMS. Now with our solutions, users have the ability to send faxes and SMSs from their NHS mail account. And this is something that your account manager can talk to you about in a lot more detail. So this is quite a nice snapshot of some of our customers. I won't take you through them all, but just to give you a few examples. Barts in London. So we worked with Barts to move them to a new site, and we actually eliminated all of their fax machines in the process and enabled them to fax enable their MFP centrally. In doing so, users were able to send and receive faxes from their desktop and email accounts as well. Now, University Hospitals of Leicester, this was used in a much smaller requirement, which was a childcare services department, and we eliminated the fax machine there and eliminated the safe haven environment and just had those inbound faxes come in securely to a team to manage those sensitive data faxes. So I thought I'd talk you through some of the fax server options. Now, WriteFax is probably our most popular solution, especially in the NHS. It's a software-based solution, so it can run in VMware and Hyper-V as well, and it's very scalable. So you can start off on a small departmental solution and then roll it out throughout the trust to a full enterprise-level solution. I think it's most popular because how flexible it is, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail, but also there's a lot of functionality around user management and so on. Now, CloudFax is very different in terms of it's very, very simple. So users can send and receive faxes from their email accounts. There's also quite a nice intuitive web client and print driver as well. Now this is becoming quite relevant at the moment. Many organisations are contacting us about this because of the changes in March 15 as a direct replacement for the fax and SMS functionality of NHS.net. Now WriteFax Connect is really a hybrid of the top two options, so it gives you the full rich functionality of an on-premise server such as WriteFax, but you get to offload the telephony into the cloud. WriteFax Demand is really used by trusts and organisations that have a huge volume, so we're probably talking 20 to 25,000 pages sent or received per month before this really starts to make good business sense. But what it does offer, it's a great solution. It offers you the full rich functionality of a full fax server, but completely hosted in the cloud. The WriteFax Express does have some nice rich functionality. It's great for users, allowing users to send and receive faxes from their email accounts, and it will simply fax enable MFPs, for example. I suppose where it really falls down compared to WriteFax is it's not scalable. So if you start with a two-channel solution, you can't expand the amount of channels or expanding in functionality. You're stuck with that as an appliance option. It does come with a software or a hardware option, but the user management as well is not quite as efficient as the WriteFax option. Now WriteFax itself is natively an IP solution, but we can connect with traditional telephony such as analog or ISDN just via a small gateway, purpose-built gateway that we supply. But as you can see, we have native integration with the phone switches you see on the screen there, such as the Cisco's, Mitels, and Avayas. And being a software solution, as I've mentioned already, you can run it in a virtualized environment. And this will offer you all the benefits that any virtualized solution will do. And we do have redundancy options around that as well. Now, when looking at WriteFax, you really tend to build the solution around your requirements. It's built in a modular fashion. So just to give you a few examples, if you run Microsoft Exchange, there is a native Exchange connector, which will give the user the ability to send and receive faxes from their Outlook clients, but also give them a bit more functionality as well, like pick cover pages on the fly and pick from contacts from a phone book. Likewise, we also have connectors for the large applications, such as SharePoint, SAP, Oracle, and FileNet. And in addition, if you're looking to fax enable one of your healthcare applications, such as EMIS, Rio, System 1, we can do this as well, because we have a full API and an integration module. And this is something that one of our technical experts can talk to you about in a lot more detail. Now I wanted to touch on Cloud Fax as well. Now Cloud Fax is nowhere near as complex as WriteFax. I've only got one slide on this, but I thought it was worth definitely mentioning it because the current requirement with NHS Mail. Now Cloud Fax is based in our UK data centre in lovely Slough, and on a worldwide basis it's actually used very widely. So around 2 billion pages go through the solution every year. So a lot of big organisations trust this as their only fax solution. It has a 99.5% SLA. As I'm sure you're aware as well, the benefit with a cloud solution, there's no throttle on capacity. So if you need one channel at 1 minute but 500 channels at the next minute, it doesn't really matter. There's never going to be a throttle or any capacity for inbound or outbound faxing. Another great thing is that you can port your existing fax numbers across to us if you need to, which allows you to keep all your traditional stationery and so on. So I thought I'd just give you a quick demonstration of the WriteFax user interfaces. Nothing really too technical, just to give you an idea of the products. Like I said, we haven't got a great deal of time, so I'll just stick to WriteFax for this webinar. Now the first thing I'm going to show you is how quick and easy it is to send a fax from a working document as a user. So if a user was working on a Word document as so, they could go File, Print, ensure the WriteFax fax printer is selected, and it pops up a dialog box, which is our printer. Now you'll see there's a lot of options here for the user, but it's worth noting that the user doesn't have to have all these options. So depending on the version of WriteFax you go for, you can decide to hide these from the user or stop them from selecting certain options. But in its simplest form, a user can go into this print driver, type in the fax number, and click send. And it's as simple as that. So it's very little user training, and it's very quick and easy. Now just to quickly go back to this print driver again. Now there's a few other options here. So there's the ability to have centralized or localized phone books. So users can pick from contacts from a phone book, and this is great if you're looking to set up the whitelist and blacklist as we discussed earlier. They can type in cover page notes. And you can add attachments as well. So anything attached will be converted into faxable formats when it leaves the fax through the WriteFax server. Now this is quite a nice bit of functionality. This is library documents. Now if there's a department that sends the same document all the time, maybe it's terms and conditions or something like that, you can have it automatically attached to every fax sent through this print driver. And of course the user has the ability to pick cover pages given the permission. Now this is our WriteFax software client, and it's pretty worth noting that not every user would use this. So we usually see it used by department heads or supervisors. Most users we find would use maybe the print driver, email integration, and maybe the simple web client as well that the solution comes with as standard. But just to quickly take you through, as you would expect, you can send a fax from here as well as you can do through the print driver, and it's exactly the same dialog box, and it can be configured in exactly the same way. You can also delete the fax, given the permissions, view the fax by opening it up, print the fax, OCR the fax. So this actually OCRs the text on the fax image and allows applications to read the fax body. Forward it to a user, forward it to a fax number, route to another user, and look at the history. Now this is quite a neat bit of functionality. This allows you to keep an audit trail on a per fax basis. So you can see here everything that's happened to that fax. You can see I've viewed it a number of times over the last few days. And if I was to go back into that fax with any luck, okay, and there we go. It's been viewed again just there. So everything that happens to that fax, whether a user has looked at it, whether it's been involved in a process or an application has dealt with it, will be recorded against that fax as long as it's in the system. On the left-hand side here as well, you'll see it's very similar to an Outlook tree, a folder tree. So from here, you can, given the permission, you can create new folders. very simply and easily. It allows users to manage their faxing very easily by dragging and dropping those faxes into a particular folder. Now, one of the other methods of sending and receiving faxes is via the email client. Now, here's a typical example of an inbound fax. As you can see here, there's some transmission record there, and the fax has been attached as a PDF. There's also the ability to attach the fax as a TIFF document as well. And if you are worried about information going through your Exchange server or your email server, you can have that come through as a hyperlink, which allows the users to click on the hyperlink and automatically authenticate, and it populates the fax up in the web clients. So the fax data never actually leaves the right fax server. Now, going back to Sense, you can have notifications come through to the email accounts as well. So here we have a notification telling Richard Spinks that the fax has been successfully sent to the fax number. If you do want a copy of the fax image as well, that can be attached, and that's completely up to you. Now, when sending a fax from email, there are a number of different ways. As I mentioned earlier, we do have an Exchange connector, but probably the most common way, and probably the simplest, is something we call generic SMTP. So a user could go up, type in their fax number at a domain name that we set up for you. Now, this could be anything that you like. It could be your trustname.fax, it could be send.com, anything that you like, anything that's easy for users to remember. Type in a subject as they normally would. And again, attach a document as they normally would. So this document's attached would be converted into faxable format and then sent out as a fax. And like everything, when that fax had been delivered, they'd get a notification to let them know what happened with that fax. So hopefully that's given you a brief idea of the user interface. I understand it's very high level, but if I just come back to the PowerPoint now, just to summarize. So why is OpenText a leader in enterprise fax? Well, I think it's fair to say that ourselves and OpenText have put a lot of work into the blue chip companies that you see on this slide here. And I think it's likewise, it's also fair to say the likes of Cisco, Avaya, Mitel, or the large applications, SAP, Oracle, Sage, and the large MFP companies have also put a lot of work into relationships just to ensure that their products fit seamlessly with the OpenText product suite. Now, I wanted to give you a quick commercial example. I understand as buyers you can probably look at these things from a very a skeptical point of view, but we try and be as accurate as we can, and we truly believe that when we work with the trusts and put forward the information they've given us from procurement and so on, these figures really do stack up. And hopefully you agree that the figures this ROI is based on, they don't look too far out of the ordinary. So this was at King's College in London, and it was to replace 256 fax machines, and we managed to consolidate this down to a small 5-channel right fax server. Now, the total cost of investment was £19,500. Now, that included the solution, plus a year's support and 2 days consultancy on site. Now, the payback period was just over a year and a half, so about 64% on year one on the return on investment. But of course, you get the future monthly savings as well, or just over £1,200. So we'd like to think in most scenarios we can put forward a great business case, and these figures really stack up, and we're willing to work with you on this and ensure it's as accurate as we can get it. I also want to give you a quick implementation example. Now, this is for Lancs CSU. Now, Lancs did have some key drivers, and I think there's several here. One of them was that they had engineers running around all the time trying to fix manual fax machines. But the other, I think the main driver really was the remote users. Now, I think it was nurses, and they were driving in to pick up their fax documents. So they did come to us with some key drivers, and we decided to work with them to produce a return on investment report and a full-on business case. And the money did stack up. It did start to approve a return. So everyone agreed that we can move forward, and we offered them a proof of concept. So this is something that we can offer all organisations, a proof of concept of the solution on site. Now, this allows you to get full buy-in from the users or decision makers and the board directors before you make the full financial obligation, and it's something we'd recommend to all interested parties. So luckily for us, the proof of concept went very well, and they decided to place the order and then stagger the rollout. Now, this is something we'd recommend as well, not to go for a big bang approach, but to stagger the rollout on a departmental basis, maybe start in a department where faxing is prominent, and then move on from there. Now, the solution's been accepted very well, and they've actually expanded the solution, and they've actually added resilience in the last few months as well. So that's just a very basic, high-level example of what we've done at Lanc CSU. So just to summarise, I think if you are going to look at a fax solution, whether it's on-premise or cloud, then we're not a bad place to start. Really do focus on this. It's probably 75 to 80% of our business, and the other side is secure email track and trace, managed file transfer, and a bit of output management as well. We've got a wide range of products as well, so whether you're looking for a small departmental product or something that's enterprise-wide, or whether you're looking for on-premise or cloud, there's something that's available for you. And I think what I'd recommend here is really, have an informal chat with your account manager, really pick their brains on your requirement, and ask them what we've done with other trusts, how's it worked, how can it benefit your trust. And I think you'll find there's something that we can help you out with here. And because traditionally these products have always fit well into the NHS, because of the benefits we brought up earlier, we do have a lot of NHS experience, and it's something that us as account managers talk about a lot, and it's something that support guys talk about a lot as well. So please do give us a call and pick our brains on this, and I'm sure there's something we can advise you on. Well, thanks a lot for attending the webinar. I hope it's given you a good oversight to what we do around the faxing in the NHS. I think we'll pass over to Richard for a few questions.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So just a reminder, there's a chat option in the questions option in your GoToWebinar panel on the right-hand side. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to type in there, and I'll do my best to answer them. We've got a few in there. There's one from David. We currently have a Siemens ISDX, and we're moving to a Mitel 3300. Can this be used with WriteFax? Yes, David, it can. It's a pretty simple integration with the Mitel 3300s. We would connect directly with a SIP trunk using a protocol called T38. And in actual fact, we could connect WriteFax to your existing Siemens ISDX as well without any problems. All of the phone system integration that we do, we have documented. The documents are written by the PBX providers themselves, and they're real sort of step-by-step guides with big screenshots, very simple methods of what's needed and how it's achieved. So if you need any of that information, just get in contact and we can provide those guides to you. And we also have a full compatibility matrix as well. So if you wanted to check that your phone system is compatible, again, it shouldn't really be a problem. We're compatible with all the sort of big phone systems, but we can provide you that compatibility matrix as well. I've got a question here from Mark. Does WriteFax integrate with AD? Yes, it does. WriteFax does integrate with Active Directory, and it's obviously a very nice, clean way of getting users into the system within WriteFax. You don't have to manually create them. We have a module within WriteFax, or it's just a configuration option within WriteFax called WriteFax Active Directory Synchronizer. And what it allows you to do is point to different OUs or different groups within your Active Directory environment and just synchronize with those containers and just automatically pull in users into WriteFax as they're added into your Active Directory. When you integrate with Active Directory, all of the applications and web interfaces that Chris has already shown you, they work with single sign-on, so the user doesn't have to log in again to any applications or anything like that. WriteFax can identify who the user is and who to send the fax out as. I've got a question here from Kevin. Does WriteFax integrate with System 1? WriteFax does integrate with System 1, and it also integrates with other sort of clinical or patient record systems. usually the way we integrate with System 1 is not for outbound faxing, but it's to capture inbound faxes and storing them into System 1. There's a couple of different ways that we can do that, but Kevin, if you're interested in that, then please give our sales guys a call, or Chris a call, and we'll talk you through those options. James has asked, does WriteFax have a web interface? Yes, it does have a web interface. So we've got a web interface that looks very similar to the Fax Util, the client application that Chris showed you. We've also got web interfaces for the administration side of the WriteFax server, and we've got web reporting web interfaces as well, so you can run reports, or administrators can run usage reports through an online or browser-based application. I've got a question here from Ian. Are the cover pages separated by a user or department, i.e. not a long list for all users? Yes, they are. So within WriteFax, each user can be assigned a default cover sheet, but they can also be assigned sort of a group available cover sheet list. And within the groups, you can assign what cover sheets are available, that are in the system, that are available to that group. So we've got quite a lot of control over that. The cover sheets that WriteFax supports can be designed in Microsoft Word, so it's pretty simple to design them and add them to the system. But they can also be designed in HTML if you've got technical ability in that, or also PCL. But there's lots of options around the cover sheets. As I said, they can be assigned automatically, so the user doesn't have to choose them. But if the user needs to change their cover sheets depending on where they're sending out a fax, then they can have a set cover sheet options, if you like, a set list just for them or their group. I've got a question here from Martin. When sending from Outlook, is there a way to access the fax phone book as opposed to typing in the fax number? So it really depends on the integration within the mail system environment. So the answer to that is yes, but it really depends on the mail environment that we're integrating with. Got another question here from James. Does it integrate with NHS email? Yes, it does. So we've got a two-way integration with NHS mail. So you can not only send email to fax directly from your NHS mail account, whether that be online or through an Outlook that's hooked up to it, but you can also receive notifications into your NHS mail account. So they might be the receipt of an inbound fax, or it might be a status notification of the success or failure of the fax a user's just sent. One last question here. How do you ensure safe haven faxing? So traditionally within the NHS, obviously safe haven faxing is usually a manual fax machine locked behind a cupboard or in a locked room or something like that, and sort of preventing the wrong people having access to that printed out fax document. With a solution such as WriteFax, that's no longer needed. WriteFax can identify from the receipt of the fax the intended recipients, and because it's already in a digital format, we can deliver that fax by any means in a secure way to that intended recipient directly, whether that's to their personal email account or whether that's into an application that they log into, or whether that's into like a network drive that particular user has access to. We can deliver it to the intended recipient. Just got one more question just come in from Joe. Is the transmission encrypted? So there's lots of encryption built into WriteFax. It's an enterprise-grade application. So there's encryption from the client applications to the server, whether that's using HTTPS through the web interface to the server, or whether that's using secure TCP/IP if you're using the Fax Util client to the server. That's all encrypted. The faxes that are sent and received by WriteFax are securely saved, and there's an encryption module as well, which can add another layer of security to it. So all the faxes that are stored within the WriteFax system can be encrypted with 256-bit AEC encryption. The transmission itself We can encrypt the message from WriteFax to your phone system. Absolutely. Once it's from your phone system onto the PSTN, once it's delivering to the actual recipient fax machine, it's no longer encrypted. It's just the same as a normal fax transmission. And that's obviously important because obviously you'll be sending and receiving faxes to other, standard, bog standard fax machines. So the T30 fax protocol has to be the same with WriteFax as it does with any other fax machine. But the benefit of fax and why it's deemed secure is the whole point-to-point communication between the two fax devices and the way that's audited and recorded in transmission logs. And obviously with WriteFax you have that enhanced audit log of transmissions as well that shows you exactly who sent a fax, when it was sent, who's viewed that fax, who saved that fax, who's routed that fax, where the fax is being routed onto. So you're not going to find a much more secure fax system than WriteFax. It really is the sort of top end of things. But that's all the questions that we've had. Chris, I'll hand back to you.
Thanks, Rich. That's great. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed the webinar and it's given you a good overview to what we do
in the NHS. But if you do have any questions, then obviously feel free to call your account manager or get in contact. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.